Okay, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us here today at FinTech Live Dubai. Time for another panel discussion now, this one on digital payments. So let me welcome our guests today. We have Cem Soyedmir, Head of Payments Go-to-Market MEA, South and Central Asia at Swift, and also with us Omer Shatsky, Head of Risk and FinTech at Wix.com. Hi to both of you, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you both. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an awful lot to cover in the next half an hour, so let's crack on. And where I want to start today is with consumers and consumer behaviour, as everything is very much linked to that. That's why we do what we do. For both of you, how have changing consumer behaviours really influenced and changed the usage of digital payment solutions? And Cem, we'll start with you on that one, please.
Okay, sure. Maybe I can start from a domestic payments view, then maybe link it to the international payments view. So what we see in general is that domestic payments are becoming more and more instant and frictionless all around the world, mainly driven by the central banks and market infrastructures, so that customers are now very used to have instant payments, speedier payments, faster payments, less costly payments, and predictable payments. And this is what they are also expecting from cross-border payments as well. So at Swift, for instance, we conducted a research last year. It was a broad one. So we asked more than 4,000 consumers and users of bank from retail segment and more than 2,000 end users from the SME segment. And the question was, what would you prefer to make a cross-border payment? So some of them said banks, some of them said fintechs, etc. But the main point was that everyone is looking for easier, speedier, less costly payments. So when we look at the top reasons, is that, okay, they want transparency. That means there shouldn't be any hidden fees. There should be transparency on FX. The payments shouldn't be failed to be delivered, and they should be trackable as well. So if it is instant, it is instant. If not, customers would like to see at a point of time T where the payment is at. And when we ask, would you prefer to use a fintech channel or a bank channel or another channel, the customers were indifferent. They said, whoever gives us that capability, we will be using these solutions. So it is also important that having domestic payments affected international payments as well. And what we see is now customers are looking for speedier, easier, transparent transaction.
Omer?
Okay. Actually, you covered a lot of the points that I wanted to mention. But to add on top of that, I think the main change that we saw was basically due to the pandemic, right? There was a huge surge into online commerce, online shopping, because we didn't have any option. So the fact that more customers worldwide are not much more familiar with an online payment is something super relevant. And I think going back to the point that you mentioned about easiness and seamless, the usage of mobile payments. But again, the mobile wallet, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Amazon Pay, the usage of all the buy now, pay later, right? Because there was a shortage in cash flow. So the buy now, pay later actually exploded worldwide from a very niche solution like installment in Brazil or even in Israel. Now everybody knows buy now, pay later. I'm thinking in addition to that, this personalized checkout experience, because it's digital and you could actually customize this. Users coming from India used to pay with this specific local payment. You could actually serve the right set of payments with the right, I would say, checkout experience that would convert many more shoppers to buyers.
One thing we've spoken a lot about already is, as you were saying, Cem, about being frictionless, and Omer saying about the ease. Because customers and consumers are so discerning, the difference 1 or 2 clicks could make in their experience, do you feel that is, I see very enthusiastic nodding there, Does it really drive standards and drive innovation, the fact that everyone knows if their solution and their platform is easy and quick, it's going to result in better results for everyone? You're going to get more business, more consumers, they'll stay with you. Omar, I'll stay with you on that one.
Yeah, sure. So yes, this one-click checkout, that's, I would say years ago was, this is something that's very unique. Now, one-click checkout is a standard, right? The usage of all those mobile wallet, again, this is standard, and you expect, if you do have an iPhone, you should be getting the Apple Pay experience. In addition to that, on one hand, there is a standard, right? If you are expecting to get a certain checkout form, you cannot do tricks and tricks because people are used to this specific set of data points they need to fill in. But still, you could actually make it smaller. You could get, let's say, if you are to use Apple Pay or even PayPal, you would get the shipping address from there. So collecting a lot of data points from your designated payment solution could reduce dramatically the checkout form and, of course, make it simpler. I think in addition to that, something that we at Wix, we are a customer fanatic and everything is being A/B tested all the time. You have plenty of room to do those modifications that at the end of the day, every friction, every pixel that you're moving here and there could make many more dollars to be converted. So this is something super important that we constantly looking at.
Jem, if you'd like to pick up on there.
So I 100% agree. And when we look at the remittances or the international payments point of view, the ease of usage is very important. So we see that fintechs are also driving that environment to get less information, to execute a payment in a much faster way becomes more and more important for the entire industry.
One thing you were saying there, Omar, about the movement of one pixel making a huge difference when you break it down that much, it's absolutely true. We've been looking at things from a consumer point of view. Let's flip it and look at it from a business point of view. Digital payments. What advantages are there from a business when you're looking at it from the business side out? And Jem, we'll start with you. Where are those advantages there you see when it comes to advance and improvements in digital payments for the business who's getting those payments in?
Yeah, okay. So maybe to start with, if we talk about digital payments for businesses, we shouldn't be talking about front-end channels such as applications, etc. We should be talking about treasury management systems as well, because businesses are capable to make bulk payments or from their own treasury management systems to many banks or many institutions with a single instruction, or a single institution, many transactions with a single instruction. So having those capabilities enabled a huge advantage on the, let's say, decrease of operational costs, so that they can do multiple payments in one time in a much faster way. And APIs are starting to play an important role there in order to connect those treasury management systems of the businesses to the systems of the bank or financial institutions who are going to make those remittances or payments. And this also have some value-added services on top that they can also track their payments, which will enable them to have that transparency as well.
Jem, thank you. Omar, pass on to you, please.
Thank you. So another, I would say, few angles on the cost reduction. First and foremost, you're open 24/7, right? So you don't rely on the cashier. The store is open for a certain number of hours. So your business is basically available all the time. In addition to that, it's instant. Right, you record the car data. You can actually get authorization on the spot. We know that ACH, check do take time until we actually get the money, and many of the players worldwide also support instant payout. So not only you got the sale went through, but also you're getting the money instantly into your bank account. I think in addition to that, the majority of the payment options that you can actually play with can bring you the fine-tuned experience for the end user, meaning for this specific product, which is more expensive, okay, yes, I would use a card, but I know that, let's say if it's a 10K watch, most likely that you would use buy now, pay later solution. So it would introduce the buy now, pay later as the first option. And again, it will convert better. Yes, there are buy now, pay later at the cashier, but they are much rarer, right, comparing to the online experience. And I think the last piece, which is, I think, the holy grail, is the data. Because you could collect much more data point on your user, the browser, when he shops, how did he actually navigate through your store, and you are building your own customer profile, you're segmented, and you would actually could get a tailor-made solution per specific product, per specific segment. So this is actually, I think, the gold that you could get from this online payment service.
Yeah, that's definitely one holy grail. If there's such a thing as two holy grails, let's pretend there are for a second. And that's the balance between security and convenience. There is such a balance between the two. Is this a holy grail? Is this the billion-dollar question? I'm not sure. But Omer, I'll start with you. How do you balance the needs for security, which is absolutely critical, but also the need for convenience? Can the two things coexist?
So actually, this is my million-dollar question every day. I'm heading the risk, right? So I have to find the right balance. I don't want to be the gatekeeper, right? I want to be the customer advocate that do push them to buy, but I want to make sure that the bad guys are being thrown away. Luckily for me, the industry, the financial institution do bring I would say more advanced tools into the playground that makes my life easier. One example would be the enforcement of PSD2 in Europe. Two-factor authentication is standard. 29 or more countries in Europe do know how to use it. One thing, instead of getting, a text message with this ugly window served by the bank, which is the 3DS 1.0. Okay, you could do other biometric challenge, face recognition, fingerprint, etc. So it's much more easy. In addition to that, the usage of tokenization. The card network do introduce network tokens. So instead of saving the card, you're getting a token. So this data breach concern, okay, I have a token, but only Visa and MasterCard could actually do the reverse engineering and translate the token to a card. And I think lastly, this is where I'm putting most of my attention, is the risk-based approach, meaning depending on the ticket size, depending on the customer location, depending on who is the merchant, I'm building a custom-made risk profiling in a way that only the higher risk will be getting a more, I would say, advanced or more difficulties down the road, meaning you should provide, you should be getting to a FA, or you need to submit something in order for you to let me complete the transaction. But the majority of the population, you're good. Come in. We would love you to buy, and we'll make sure that it will be successful.
Yeah, I often compare it to almost going through passport control. If you go through a passport checkpoint and there's a bored person behind the desk and they barely look at your picture, you think, well, was there any point to that? But you actually want them to have a look. You want them to be sure. Cem, if we can come to you on that, how do we strike that balance when people are demanding frictionless transactions? It's such a difficult balance to strike.
Exactly. And especially when you're asking questions to me as a Swift employee, I should say, first and foremost, security, resilience, and trust is very important. And when we look at a cross-border payments perspective, this is a must. So as Swift, this is non-negotiable for us. So it should be on top of everything. And as you mentioned, it is right. We need to balance for that. So as Swift, we are the network. So we are the network owned by the network members itself. So network members, financial institutions, are mainly using our rails to make a cross-border payments. And this is why it is important to have that security and resilience on top of everything. But we need to also ease their lives in order to provide better, seamless, let's say, transparent cross-border payments. And in order to do that, we also provide some value-added services, such as in order to ease their, let's say, controls and security levels, we are offering some tools like payment control services, KYC services, on top, in order to have their payments easier, as also be secure. We are also providing some services like pre-validation to enable the sender institution to pre-validate the end beneficiary's information, to make name checks, etc., before they initiate the payment, to be sure that it is going to the right person. So that before initiating the payment, we are also offering that kind of tools, first of all, in order not to breach any security issues, and also to help them to have more information to have a secure payment.
And Cem, you mentioned there about things being seamless, and that's something I want to pick up on and carry on with. There are so many different digital payment systems that have to communicate. It's such a patchwork of different systems now, and that's only going to grow as more and more sort of open banking solutions and so forth come online. How do we go about making sure there is seamless integration between all these different digital payment systems? Cem, what's your thoughts on that?
So we should be, as the entire industry, preventing to generate digital islands which have not been interlinked together. Because again, if you look from a cross-border payments perspective, the transactions start from a domestic payment scheme. It will go through the domestic rails to another financial institution. Then it can go through the cross-border payment scheme to the other intermediary, but it may end through the domestic rails to the end financial institution or to the end user's account. So it is critical to speak the same language among those infrastructures. So this is why, for instance, at Swift, we came up with the ISO standards, the ISO 20022 standards, which enables both domestic schemes, that domestic rail, and cross-border schemes talk the same language in order not to lose any information on the way, to ease the interlinkage, to provide that efficient, faster, seamless payment for the entire chain.
Omar, if we can come to you on that, how do we make that system seamless when there are so many different systems having to interact with each other?
So we tackle this, I would say, challenge in various ways. First, when it comes to the user offering, okay, what we did basically in Wix Payment, we are the service provider for our users, but under the hood, we're working with Adyen and Stripe. So we're getting the best of breed, depending on the coverage, depending on the payment option, but this embedded payment that is becoming more and more common actually just mitigate this multi-players scenery that somebody else will tackle this hassle, but from the customer standpoint, it has a single entry point. For us, as somebody that does need to integrate those players, as we move forward, there are certain standards, okay, basic API for payments, auth, capture, refund, yada, yada. At the end of the day, as the technology is moving forward, there is a standard what kind of data points you expect to collect, how to record the data. There is also, of course, the PCI standard that gives you exact instruction, how do you deal with such a sensitive data. And most of, I would say, the bigger players do follow the same thing. In addition to that, when it comes to interoperability, there are global payment players, Stripe and Adyen, but I would give another example like Nuvei. Nuvei has this strategy. They do acquire local players in many countries worldwide. And at the end of the day, there's the Nuvei interface, one interface, but under the hood, somebody took care of this integration hassle. So if I were to be, and I am a global platform, and I need to serve customers from India, Brazil, US, and EU, I could connect with one or two players and get a full coverage. In addition to that, the open banking, yeah, you do have a standard, right? This is standard was part of the Payment Service Directive 2 that came from Europe, but I'm from Israel. The local banking authorities actually took the PSD2, do some tweaks and tricks to make it total fit to the way the Israeli banking scenery works. But at the end of the day, the notion, okay, this is a standard. You can get data, you can act with some rights on that specific bank account has become a standard. And to complement that, players like Pledge, right? Single entry point, and you will get full coverage of the entire banking scenery in the US. So there is the Pledge standard that would give you bank verification, check the balance, yada, yada. And it's just super simple for somebody that would like to provide kind of an embedded banking solution, global platforms like Wix.
You were just alluding to the future there, Omer, about the different technologies that are coming online. There are so many. The pace of change is kind of bewildering if you take a step back and look at it. You know, we've got blockchain, digital currencies, and a million other things that I'm sure will be announced at any given time. The pace is incredible. How do you think that is all going to shape the future of digital payments, and how do you try and keep up with it?
Okay, so maybe you could call me old-fashioned, but I'm not a big believer of the digital currencies and blockchain. I'm an engineer that wants to solve a problem. And I want to make sure that, again, if you do have a digital currency, what kind of problem are you solving? If you want to do money laundering, I understand that, but it's not a problem that I want to solve, right? Without disrespecting those trends, I think the majority of the more effective enhancement that we're seeing are mobile payment, right? This is the, by the way, at Wix, last year, checkout mobile experience is now more successful comparing to desktop. So the majority of our users are using the mobile checkout experience. So this is where we're going. And the more millennials, Z, whatever, this is the tool that they're using. So that would be a standard. In addition to that, and this is something that I've been doing as a platform that do acquire merchant, KYC. Instead of, again, back in the days, you just submit a pile of documents, you have a lot of tools that could actually collect the data on your behalf and give you verification. You could use selfie, right? Put your license and yourself, okay, cross, boom, in one experience. You don't need to check, the pictures. And the last piece, I think, and this is something that would tremendously change the way we work, AI. Yes, it's the buzzword, but we saw so many advantages from the risk to the payment optimization to whatever. The fact that it's so easy to use and so powerful would bring this digital payment into a completely new era. I don't know exactly how it's going to meet us specifically, but at the end of the day, instead of, our interface is a form, we're putting data and then submitting, it's going to be a different kind of interaction. You will speak, I don't know exactly, I'm not a futuristic for that extent, but still it's going to be something different and it will completely change the way we work.
Yeah, I think we could talk for the rest of the afternoon when it comes to AI. Cem, I'll come to you next on that one. How do we keep up with all of these innovations, all of these changes, and how do you think it is going to shape the future of digital payments?
Yeah, so if we talk about blockchain as a technology itself, I agree with Omer, but when we look at CBDC landscape, it is growing. It is inevitably growing because central banks are now working on it, regulations are there, so it is growing. Maybe I can share you some figures. According to Atlantic Council, more than 130 countries as of today are now exploring CBDCs. So either they are researching, either they're developing it, either piloting it, but it is there and it is going to happen. This is what we see. And 11 countries already launched their CBDCs by the end of last year. So, but the problem is when we talk about blockchain, when we talk about distributed ledger technology, we were also talking about, okay, there shouldn't be any central institution who would navigate those payments in between, right? But the reality is different. So as of today, since you have CBDCs, those CBDCs are working on different infrastructure. Some of them are using Corda, some of them are using other structures, etc., etc. So that means there is a need for interlinking or interoperability of those CBDCs to move from one place to another. So there's a need, first of all, moving CBDCs from one country to another country, and also there is a need for having transactions between CBDC accounts and fiat currency accounts. So as SWIFT, for instance, we also came up with an idea, okay, so that as SWIFT, we can play that role to connect all those digital items together, as we are doing as of today, to make it interoperable for entire world. So as of last year, we ended up having some experiments with 38 global institutions, central banks and some global banks, to demonstrate the new use cases to access digital trade, securities, foreign exchange, and regular payments. And as of this year, we started releasing the beta version of CBDC connector of SWIFT, which is been now tested by 3 central banks like Banque de France, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and National Bank of Kazakhstan. And now also we initiated the phase 2 sandbox use cases to explore some new use cases such as digital trade, foreign exchange trade and settlement, delivery versus payment, etc. So what we see is that CBDCs are coming inevitably driven by the central bank or monetary authorities of the countries or nations. So there is an obvious need to have an interlinkage in between. And as SWIFT, for instance, we are going to play that role in near future.
And just picking up on one theme you went into there, Jem, that I want to expand on a little bit more, and that is having that global view, because different parts of the world are in different levels of digital maturity. You know, a digital payment system that works in the US might not work in Eastern Europe, that might work in Eastern Europe, but might not work in Australasia. I don't know. Everywhere is different. There are different amounts of maturity. Jem, I'll start with you on this one as we look to wrap up. How difficult, but how important is it that systems have flexibility to work between different areas and different degrees of digital maturity?
It is very important. This is why we should be looking after having payments account to account, account to person, account to wallet, pay to wallet, wallet to phone number, etc., etc. So there are, as you mentioned, the maturity is very different from one country to another, from one area to another. Banked population is higher in the Western countries, in Europe, in the Americas, etc., or in let's say East Asia. But when you look at Africa, for instance, it is higher, and people are now relying on solutions like wallets. So there should be some tools, and there are some tools, and they are also developing to make it standard to have seamless payments between a bank account to a wallet, or from a wallet to another person, etc. So it is very crucial, I should say.
And Omar Shatsky, I'll come to you on this as the final part of this. Your thoughts on how we go about addressing those differences that are around the world now.
So again, this interoperability is crucial, right? And I think it touched a very critical point that there are countries worldwide that the population of the unbanked people is dramatic, right? So they do use mobile payment in a way that you're actually paying through your cellular carrier, right? We saw something significant in Brazil when the local regulator introduced Pix as a kind of, on one hand, mobile payment, but on the other hand, you don't need a bank account. So there is a way to top up, to put some money in the account. This is super dramatic. And as those players work together with a certain standard, like again, the PSD2 or the account-to-account protocol, it becomes easier and more seamless for the end user and, of course, the merchants to serve those players globally. And something that we touched before, how to protect yourself and your merchant, right? The usage of the 2FA, the biometric tools, and also the merchant with all the new fraud prevention tools we're using would give you a better, I would say, sense. Yeah, I could trust. Let's go back 10 years ago, PayPal brand, and still is, this is something you could trust. But now, okay, it becomes a commodity. I think those two, this interoperability and those security standard, payment standard, will actually become a global standard that would bring all of us to a place. Yes, we are a global nomad, right? We could go wherever we want. We could use Apple Pay or whatever payment that is available in that specific area.
Omar Shatsky from Wix.com and Jem Soedemir from Swift. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon at FinTech Live Dubai. We've covered a huge amount. Really enjoyed your company today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you very much indeed.